All right, baseball is fun like most of the time. Okay, today is a nice reminder that little bit of a comeback down to earth game for the Detroit Tigers, but really the same problems that have plagued them all season is what got them in this game. So let's talk about it all today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Tuesday, May 30th, 2023. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Bird Dogs. Head to birddogs.com/LockedOnMLB to get you a nice pair of some of the most comfortable shorts and clothing you will ever wear in your entire life. Okay. All right. Well, the Tigers drop their Memorial Day, their Monday game to the Texas Rangers by a score of 5-0. They get shut out. They haven't been like last season. They set just a new American League record or tied an American League record, something like that for shutouts. Thankfully, again, while this offense still has a long way to go to even be like league average or like competent, it is certainly significantly better than last season's historic, awful, dreadful, et cetera, offense. So at least that's nice. But in this one, they do get shut out. I think I want to start with let's start with our pitching, and then we'll get into our offense, and we'll talk about Evaldi for a little bit because he's on an absolute heater lately. But let's start with Matthew Boyd. So Matthew Boyd goes, what was his final line? 6 innings, 5 hits, 5 earned runs, 4 walks, 5 strikeouts, 1 home run against. His ERA is now 5.96 on the year. Not great. This was the most just stereotypical Matthew Boyd start ever, right? Like if you were to encapsulate what is a Matthew Boyd start, if you were to define a Matthew Boyd start in a class, let's say you're sitting down and the teacher or the professor or whatever goes, I want you to define a Matthew Boyd start. This is what you show them. To a T, this is a Matthew Boyd start. He's cruising through what, 5? Cruising. He looks fantastic. He's not giving up hits. He's using the slider away to lefties, but then going up and in as well. The fastball had a little bit more life on it. So that had a little bit of jump out of the hand today. Got up to 93, 94 at one point. I thought he was mixing his pitches very well. He was hitting all of his spots. He incorporated the curveball, which is kind of a rare thing that we don't see too terribly often. And then he gets a walk. What was it? A walk and a single? Get 2 men on base. There's still 2 outs in the inning. You're 1 pitch away from getting out of it and still having a shutout. And then next thing you know, bada bing, bada boom, 3-run homer on the definition of a meatball. Like a very, very weak and just non-competitive pitch. A breaking ball that did not break right down the heart of the plate to one of the game's best hitters in Corey Seager. And he takes it 400 feet. And then we're down 3-0. Okay. But then he goes out there and the next inning mows down the Rangers again. Just completely mows them down. And then he goes out for the 7th for some reason. I didn't agree with that managerial decision. I feel like that was one where just like everybody saw what happened next happening. Like that was not a surprise at all to send him out there for the 7th. And then what was it, walk single with that too? I feel like that was very, very predictable. And I very much disagreed with the decision to go to him there. That being said, they go to Mason Englert after Matt Boyd, and Mason Englert has been struggling lately too. None of those runs are technically his. He goes this outing 2 innings, 4 hits, no earned runs, no walks, 1 strikeout. ERA is down to 4.83 on the year. But he has not really impressed lately either. I think that he went through a couple of weeks stretch in April where he was really effective and was getting some high leverage situations and converting in them. But he has given up a lot of hard contact. He's given up a lot of homers specifically. He didn't give up any home runs in this outing, which is fine. But he has given up a lot of home runs this year, and he gave up a lot of hard contact in this outing. This was again, 2 of those runs happened while he was on the mound, even though they weren't necessarily his runs. And I mean, outside of that, even the next inning, he was still giving up a boatload of hard contact, just the one strikeout. I'm not sure this team has really like a bona fide, really great option for multi innings use. Like Tyler Alexander, I've voiced my opinion of him so far this season multiple times. I mean, he pitched in this game too at 1 inning of shutout ball, but he has a 6.4 ERA almost. Mason Inglert's pushing 5, but has home run problems. Like I don't know. I don't think Tyler Holton, I guess, but that's more of like a 2 inning thing, not really like a 3 or 4 inning thing. I don't know. This team really needs innings, as I've voiced a lot of times lately, right? I keep bringing that up, but it's so true and important at this point in the season. They very much need innings from the rotation and from the pen. And right now, I'm not really sure there's a super effective multi-inning reliever, and that's something that if someone doesn't step up is going to bite them. That is going to be an issue at some point and rear its ugly head. So hopefully someone can step up. I'm not saying it can't be one of these guys. I'm just saying up to this point, it hasn't been. Tyler Alexander has shown that he can be that guy in his 3-4 year career. Mason Englund, again, won a stretch earlier where he was pretty effective. And Tyler Holton, again, in 2 inning stretches has been solid, but I don't really know if they have. I get 2 innings is that's fine. That's needed for sure. But they really need someone that is quote a long reliever that you kind of know is not going to give up 1 or 2 runs every time they step on the bump. And I'm not sure they have that right now. So something to keep an eye out for there. But really just wrapping up the pitching in this game in general, Matthew Boyd, it's not surprising anymore. And this was what everyone was. I don't want to use the word complaining, but some people definitely were. But this is what kind of sirens went off when we signed Matt Boyd. And it wasn't because like, oh, Matthew Boyd's awful or he's absolutely horrendous or anything. It's just like we all know what Matthew Boyd is. We are all very aware. And this start kind of, like I said, summarized Matthew Boyd's career pretty spot on. He has the ability to be really, really good. And then he'll just make leave 1 or 2 sliders up in the zone that catch way too much of the plate. Next thing you know, the game's out of reach. Now, the offense didn't score. So I'm not trying to say that this was Matt Boyd's fault or anything like that. Matthew Boyd, or the pitching, I guess, in general's fault. 5 runs isn't a masterclass performance, but it would have been a lot closer, and I think they probably don't send Matthew Boyd out there for the 7th if the Tigers' offense had made it a little bit of a closer game. I don't know. I really disagree with that managerial decision in general. I disagree with Hinch on that one to send him out there, and it did cost them a couple of runs. But, yeah, I don't know. Just I don't even want to call it frustrating. It was frustrating, but I think the more frustrating thing came on the offensive side of the ball, which we'll talk about here next, right after I tell y'all about our friends over at FanDuel. FanDuel Sportsbook, America's Sportsbook, the #1 sportsbook. You have to make a fast break and go to FanDuel during the NBA playoffs, and the finals are just around the corner because right now new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $2,500. That's $2,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet does not win. There's no better place to bet at all the playoff action than America's #1 sportsbook. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and get a no-sweat first bet up to $2,500. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2 of Locked On Tigers. I appreciate y'all for tuning in. Thank you for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. We'll be back tomorrow recapping game 2 of this series against the Texas Rangers. And be sure to check out the SiriusXM app, and you can just simply search Detroit Tigers, and you'll be able to listen to the home broadcast. Pretty cool feature there. So check out that on the SiriusXM app. Okay, so we talked about the pitching. We talked about Matthew Boyd. Kind of a same story, different day situation there. Nothing really new. You've just listened to a whole segment. And you're like, yeah, I know that's Matthew Boyd a lot. We get it. Let's talk about the offense. You're going to be saying that again because this offense was absolutely putrid with runners in scoring position and with clutch hitting in general in this baseball game, despite the fact that they got on base and I thought actually controlled the strike zone incredibly well. They had 5 walks and 5 strikeouts and 5 hits. So they had 10 base runners in this ball game, 0 runs. What are the 2 biggest reasons why? 1, no clutch hitting. And 2, wait for it, 0 extra base hits. 0. Every single hit in this ball game was a single, and obviously the walks are only walks. So you had 10 base runners. Not a single one went for extra bases, and only 1 was with runners in scoring position. 1 hit, rather, was with runners in scoring position, and it did not score a run. So here you are. You went 1 for 6 with RISP in this ball game. You had 8 left on base, and that is not good. And that's not new. That's something that this team has struggled with all season. They are in the bottom 3 or 4, 3, I believe, in baseball with batting average, with runners in scoring position, and I think 4th worst in baseball with their OPS with runners in scoring position. So just something that continues to be a huge issue, and that I think a lot of people are going to have a difficult time completely buying in unless it's addressed. It's probably being addressed, unless it's just flat out fixed the rest of the summer. And one of the reasons that this game in particular, it was so frustrating that they were struggling was because Nathan Eovaldi has been on an absolute tear, right? In his last 5 starts, he's 4-0, at least going into this game, rather. In his last 5 starts before this ball game, in which he had a shutout through 5, he had 2 complete game shutouts. He was 4-0. Maybe not complete game shutouts. He had 2 complete games. He went 4-0, had only given up, I think, 3 or 4 total runs across those 5 starts, and 3 of them were in 1 outing. He had been on an absolute tear and had only had 5 or 6 walks in his last 5 starts combined. Just has been dominating. And the Tigers put up really solid at-bats against him in terms of working the count, not chasing, not expanding the zone. They did really, really, really well in that department. Eovaldi only went 5 innings because he had almost 100 pitches after the 5th inning. So the offensive approach by the Tigers in this ball game was successful yet again. They showed a graphic on Bally of team walk totals in the last week. And the Tigers are not even close leading baseball. Like, not only are they crushing the field, they were like, I want to say it was 17 or 18 walks more than second place. So, like, you're talking about they had dang near 60 walks in the last 7 games. Like, they have really been taking that kind of mindset and motto and identity to heart lately, and even dating back the last couple of weeks. They've been walking a lot more. The Tigers have one of the highest walk totals by a team in the entire month of May, and it's in large part due to the last 2 weeks. They've been really good in that department, and this game was no different. They just couldn't hit anybody home. They had bases loaded, no outs at one point in this ball game, and yet, obviously, as you see, did not score a single run. Bases loaded, no outs. Not only didn't score in that situation, got shut out for the entire outing. And they had base runners. It wasn't like those were the only base runners of the game either. They consistently had runners on base. Again, 10 base runners in 9 innings. Goodness, I forgot how long a baseball game was. They had 10 base runners in this ball game. Just couldn't do anything with them. No timely hitting. I do want to talk about some individual performances. I guess we can Let's start with the bottom third of the lineup, and then we'll get into some of the other individual performances in this ball game we need to talk about. But the bottom third of the lineup in this game specifically was really brutal. The 7, 8, and 9 hitters were Eric Haas, Andy Ibanez, Zach Short. Zach Short goes 0 for 3. Andy Ibanez goes 0 for 4, and Eric Haas goes 0 for 3 with a walk. So combined, the three of them go 0 for 10 with one walk and 2 strikeouts. Not great. Andy Ibanez, I understand everybody's frustrated that he honestly just continues to get playing time at this point. I think he is gone when Kerry Carpenter's back, and I think Kerry Carpenter is back relatively soon. He's rehabbing now. So that would lead you to believe he's not too terribly far away. But I don't think that they're just going to get rid of Andy Ibanez. Like, yes, he's been bad for sure. He's really struggled lately. But I don't think they're just going to get rid of him and call up, like, who knows who. And then when Carpenter comes back, make another roster move and send that person down and make him. They're just going to wait until. Now, playing him is a completely different story. Getting him off the roster versus playing him is two different things. And playing him at first base was certainly a decision. He had, I think it was like one of the first couple of batters of the ball game. You were like, oh my goodness, that was shaky. I'm not sure how this is going to go. He wasn't awful. He actually made a diving play on the first base side, first base line rather, as well. He wasn't awful defensively, whatever. The problem is he has a 167 batting average and a 457 OPS. In his last like 45 at bats, he has 2 hits. That's the issue. He's a free swinger. He's not going to draw walks. He doesn't really work counts, despite the fact that that's what your like team identity is trying to do. And because he's a free swinger, he's going to go on hot stretches. He's going to go on cold stretches. This is an all-time cold stretch. This is a dude that was on the opening day roster for a 95-loss Rangers team last year and didn't even make it to the All-Star game. Like, and he's 30. Like, we should not be surprised. But again, playing him every day is certainly a choice. And one that at this point I disagree with. I don't think Andy Ibanez should be getting too much playing time. You can keep him on the roster. If you like a matchup, you want to pinch hit him later, whatever. I know that that's a Hinch thing. That's fine. But he would be my choice when Kerry Carpenter comes back to remove from the roster ahead of Jonathan Scope at this point, genuinely. And B, I don't understand like forcing him into the lineup. Like Spencer Torkelson, did he really need a day just to be a DH? You needed to play Andy Ibanez that badly that we needed to find a spot for him. I don't know. And then Eric Haas as well has just been absolutely struggling mightily lately. His numbers over the last 2 weeks are really not great. He has a 235 average and a 611 OPS on the season. The one thing I will say about Eric Haas, he also kind of has hot stretches and cold stretches. Last year, he was absolutely abysmal through the first 2 months of the season. And then June rolled around and he had an OPS over 800 the rest of the way. So it's not impossible. We have seen this movie before. It's not impossible for Eric Haas to just flip a switch and then be the Eric Haas that we're used to the remainder of the season. I don't want to just give up on Eric Haas on May 29th, May 30th, whatever. I don't. I think that, and also, what catcher are you going to bring up in the organization? And you don't say Dylan Dingler because he is not ready. Like there's no Donnie Sands, I guess, but like Andrew Knapp is a 30-year-old minor leaguer. Like, I don't know. I think the organization's best interest at the moment is just to see if Haas turns it around in June, like he has really each of the last 2 years. To be honest with you, he's never really been a super fast starter, but once he locks in, he locks in. So we'll see what that happens. I'm not trying to give him a leash that's as long as the entire season, right? If he's still struggling 2 or 3 weeks from now, we're going to have to get the show on the road, especially if we're even trying to pretend to be remotely competitive in the AL Central. But at the time being, I'm not ready to just completely bail on Eric Haas. This team just doesn't have a lot of great offensive options behind the dish at the moment. So trying to work it out. Jake Rogers been struggling too. And then Zach Short, again, I've said it a million times. Zach Short is as much as we all love the clutch hitting he's been having lately, is not going to surprise you. We pretty much know what he is at this point, but he's been swinging the bat well. So one game, whatever. So that was where I wanted to start. Was the bottom 3 in this lineup just really jumps out at you as like, that is where a lot of rallies died in this ball game. A lot. A lot of momentum was taken away once it got to the bottom third. And it just really felt like once the lineup got through McKinstry and Green, I know Harvey batted second, but Green at 3, once it got past Green at 3, then you kind of were like, oh, Torque maybe, but he had a couple of really bad at-bats in this game. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, the bottom third just really did not impress me from when the lineup was made, and then that did not change as the game was played. Okay, let's talk about some individual performances. And we already kind of talked about the lack of clutch hitting, but we'll do all that right after this. All right, everybody, welcome back here to the third and final segment of Locked On Tigers. I appreciate y'all for tuning in. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. Let's talk about some individual performances in this game, shall we? Yeah, that's it. Have a good one. So, no, Riley Green, great again. We're going to talk about, well, let's talk about him right now. Why not? We're already at this point in the show. Riley Green goes 2 for 4, hard hit ball. His average is up to 297, and his OPS is at 809. One of the more underrated plays. I want to give credit where credit is due, the same way that I kind of over focus on minute details and I kind of freak out sometimes about like really small mistakes that happen. I want to give credit where credit is due to Riley Green because I feel like I've been doing it to him maybe more than other people lately just because I expect so much out of him. And he had a play in this game that I think single-handedly saved a run. Ball was hit to right field where Zach McKinstry was playing. The ball goes over Zach McKinstry's head. It bounces off the wall. And Zach McKinstry misses it when bouncing off the wall. And Riley Green ran all the way over from center into right field, was backing him up, and was right there when the ball went past Zach McKinstry when it bounced off the wall. He got it into the infield, and I think prevented a run because I think if he doesn't do that, then that guy gets all the way to third. I'm not saying that's not a play he should make. That is the center fielder's job to do that. But seeing it in practice was very nice. That was a really, really heads-up play by Green there. And then, yeah, he was great at the plate again. He continues his absolutely just on-fire month of May, and hopefully he can carry it over into June here and throughout the rest of this series because we're going to need it. Spencer Torkelson, talking about individual performances, thought he did not look great in this one. And that seems to be kind of a constant theme, just really hit or miss, no pun intended, with Spencer Torkelson. He'll have some games where I'm like, wow, all 4 of those at-bats were super professional, super good. Even if he didn't get results, I'm happy with it. And then you have games like this where, I mean, that strikeout late, I don't even know. I don't even know. I don't know what you're looking for. That was a 88 mile an hour, whatever, like slider, cutter, mixture type thing, right down the middle on, I believe, a full count. And he took just like one of the worst swings I've seen from him all season. Just was a get me over swing. He was completely under it and laid on it. And yeah, he goes 0 for 3 with a walk and a strikeout in this ball game. He has had a better May. I'm not trying to say that like this is just the story of his season or anything, but in this game, we're doing a game recap. I did not really like any of the at-bats from Torkelson in this one. So hopefully he can bounce back tomorrow. What else? Akil Baddoo gets a hit and a walk. He continues to be awesome. Just continues to be one of the more consistent at-bats on this team at the moment. I think the only other person we covered the entire bottom third, Zach McKinstry with a walk and a hit in this one, just continues to be the GOAT. 296 batting average, 860 OPS. Not bad from your leadoff hitter. I love Zach McKinstry. Okay, let's talk Harvey Baez. So this is kind of the, again, with individual performances, just kind of talking about the good performances of the day and the bad performances of the day. Harvey now has a 230 batting average and a 592 OPS. He goes 1 for 4 with a strikeout in this one. Had a hard hit single to left field on a slider that was nowhere close to where I believe it was, I know it was a reliever. I forget which one though, wanted the ball. So it's one of those things where it's getting to the point where you can't. I'm kind of over him batting in the top 3 of the lineup at the moment. And I don't think it's going to change. I really don't. And it's not like they just have a bunch of ringers that are ready to just like be, number 2 or 3 hitters in the lineup, just like ready to go. So like if you're going based off ceiling, I really do understand keeping him there because at his best, he can be that guy. But Like, you have a sub 600 OPS on the season now. He has been struggling mightily over the last couple of weeks. I don't know. You did it earlier in the season. Not only did you bench him, but you moved him down to the 5 spot at one point in April, right? I don't know why we can't do that again. And like, it woke him up last time, and he went on one of his hot streaks. And like, a hot streak will come. Like, every time people act like, like he's just going to stay at whatever 400 OPS that he's had over the last 2 weeks. Like, no, this is just Harvey. Like, if we have over a year of tape on him now. Like, he's been on the team for over a calendar year now. He's going to go on a 2-week hot streak at some point, and then he'll go on a 2 or 3 week cold streak. And that's just like how it goes. But I think we're at a point now where this one's lasted long enough where I don't need to see him batting 2 or 3 in the lineup anymore. I don't. And again, he's been a clutch hitter. He's leading the team with average with runners in scoring position pretty comfortably. But like, I'm over it. I could move him down to 4 or 5 even. I don't even need him to bat like 8. Just moving him down to clean up is fine by me for the time being. Just I don't really want Harvey Baez to be my 2 hitter at the moment. Been really, really struggling lately. Okay, let's just talk about the rest of the series. That's pretty much it for this ball game. Really frustrating. It really is not like I'm not discovering the wheel here. Like, this is pretty much what the entire season has been. They get on base, they can't score them. There you go. There's your quick summary in 10 seconds rather than half an hour. Okay, let's talk about the rest of the series. Texas has put up an incredible season so far. They've been one of the best teams in baseball. The sustainability of it is kind of a question mark to me, only because not that they don't have the talent to do so. I do think they do, but their numbers with runners in scoring position are like if prime Miguel Cabrera was up to bat every single time they got a runner on second and third. Like, genuinely, they have a 333 average with RISP and an OPS of almost 950 with runners in scoring position. I just can't comprehend that being sustainable over the course of a season. So I do wonder about how sustainable their like crazy offensive output so far in the season has been. That being said, they did it again in this game, and they have the talent to beat you regardless of if they're going 1 for 10 or if they're maintaining their crazy clip of, like 4 for 9 with RISP or whatever that they've been doing lately. This is a talented roster, and the pitching has been really good. And as some of their starters get healthy, they're only going to get better. Like, Jacob deGrom is out right now, and they still have gotten a lot of really good production from their starting pitching. So when looking at the last 2 games here, we have Alex Faedo is going tomorrow, and he will be going up against Martin Perez, who has a 3.83 ERA on the season and is 6-1. He's got a 1.47 whip, so you have a chance to get on base, but the ERA is low. That really sounds like a guy who's kind of made for to face the Tigers. Oh, you can let some guys on base, but they won't score. So we'll see what happens. Alex Faedo going against him. And then on Thursday, that's where a big question mark is. So for Texas, Dunning is going. Dane Dunning, who has been phenomenal this season. A 1.67 ERA in 12 starts. He's 4-0, has a sub-1 whip. Has been really, really solid. And he also, that's not all as a starter, however, though. That I think he only has, he's appeared in 12 games and started 4 or 5. So a little bit kind of weird numbers. Take that with what you will there. But he's going up against, currently to be announced, Joey Wentz. We kind of talked about that a little bit yesterday. There's kind of a conversation there on whether the Tigers are going to use Joey Wentz or whether they're going to have an opener and then he's going to kind of piggyback off if they're going to just start him outright. I don't know what's going to happen, but I would assume that Joey Wentz is going to get innings in that baseball game, which is always just something to watch out for because lately he has not been doing very well. So that is the rest of the series. As far as the outlook of what the Tigers need to accomplish, this starting the series off like this was, I'm going to say frustrating again, even though I've used that word a million times this episode. Because this game was winnable. Like, I genuinely believe that. They again, 10 base runners is not a small amount. And they knocked one of the best starters in baseball so far this season out of the game after the 5th inning. They had bases loaded, no outs against him, and didn't score any runs. Like, this was a very winnable ball game. I think maybe they go to the high leverage guys if it's a closer game instead of Mason Engler in this game, and they don't send Matthew Boyd out there for the 7th. And this is a completely different ball game. But they let this one slip and they lost pretty comfortably. And now you have Faedo and Wentz are your next 2 starters. And the 2 guys that Texas has going for them have been pretty solid this season. It's going to be a tall order, a very tall order. But if you want to convince people that you are going to maintain a competitive feeling, even if it's not even real, in the AL Central, this is what you have to do. Oh, by the way, on Monday, the Minnesota Twins beat the Houston Astros. The Tigers are back to 2 games out of first place. If you want to maintain that, you got to beat some good teams here, especially at home. You have to. And so you're going to have to figure out a way to piece together some competitive baseball over the next 2 days. And then you have Chicago again this weekend, who you've proven you can beat. Okay? So go play some competitive ball and go score some runs. Have some clutch hitting, for the love of everything. All right? Thank you for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every day. Tomorrow, we will be back recapping Game 2. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. Yeah, we'll be back then. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope, and I'll catch you all tomorrow, baby. Go. Oh, I got to find my cool video. Where'd it go? Okay, there it is. Go Tigers.